This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
My guest today on Sports Files is the co-founder of ESPN, Scott Rasmussen. I certainly hope everyone had their fill of turkey or ham or anything you partake in during the Thanksgiving holiday. It's certainly a time to give thanks for everything in our lives, including many things we take for granted: freedom, family, faith, and oh yes, those four letters, ESPN. Of course, I don't place sports viewing in the same category as the prior three, but let's face it, if you care about sports like many of us do, could you imagine the world today without ESPN? Scott Rasmussen was born into a sports household, and alongside his father, Bill, who was experienced in sports public relations, wanted to create a small network that could transmit sports broadcasts to fans in Connecticut. What they discovered was that for a few more dollars, they could be broadcast to the entire country through satellite. In 1979, the fledgling network went on the air. ESPN, the acronym that stood for Entertainment and Sports Programming Network. Rasmussen was there through the infancy stages, and 5 years later, he and his father would be bought out. No, Scott wouldn't be there for the ESPN explosion, but if it weren't for the vision of the Rasmussens, who knows if we would ever have a 24-hour sports network, and if today's sports world would be the same. Today, Scott Rasmussen on ESPN and on his life as one of America's most innovative pollsters. That's next on Sports Files. Scott, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Let's talk about your upbringing with both the exposure you got from your father from the media and, of course, sports.
Absolutely. I mean, I was at Yankee Stadium one day when I was 5 years old and saw Mickey Mantle hit the ball off a facade in right field, almost put it out of the park. In the broadcast world, I did my first commercial when I was 7 years old on radio. Me and my father needed a kid to do something, so they brought me into the station, and I just said a few words. It was no big deal, but it was obviously a big part of my upbringing.
I grew up where you grew up in New Jersey. We're Jersey guys, and I wanted to be a sportscaster from a little tot. And you had the media exposure and the sports exposure. Was it more sports you wanted to get into, or was it more the media part of it?
You know, you didn't really think about it too much in those days. For me, I played a lot of hockey, so that was always fun.
Right.
My high school team wasn't very good, so when we didn't make the playoffs, my father and I bought the rights to the Western Mass High School Hockey Championships, paid $20 a game, and you know, we did a syndicated radio show. So it was just all the same thing. And my first real, more serious job in broadcasting was with the Hartford Whalers, then the New England Whalers,
right.
The World Hockey Association. And that was a special thrill because as a young hockey player, my childhood idol was Gordie Howe. He came and played with the Whalers. He had his 50th birthday while I was working with the team, and I got to be the MC standing at center ice on his 50th birthday introducing my childhood idol. Just a magic moment.
If I remember correctly, Scott, was it Marty and Mark? Were they the sons, and they played alongside him?
They played alongside him, and he was still the leading scorer on the team. You know, it was just a magnificent, and he's a great guy too. But for me, I'm standing in the spotlight with Gordie. He got a 9-minute standing ovation. He would wave to the crowd, and he'd turn around and tell me a joke. He'd wave to the crowd again. It was just great.
So you do this, you get to, as you say, introduce one of your idols. From there, what are you thinking? I'm going to be a sportscaster. I want to be a play-by-play guy. Where do you go from there? And you're how old at this point?
I was 20, 21 years old at this point. You weren't thinking beyond the next week. I mean, it was just sort of next paycheck, next day. But the big issue was, and nobody can really remember this anymore, there were only 3 television networks. You couldn't get sports on television.
Right. There was no Fox back then.
No Fox and no ESPN, obviously. We tried to come up with ways to get the Whalers on TV. My father and I talked to a bunch of people. We just couldn't do it very often. And somebody told us about this crazy new thing called cable. Connecticut was the last state to get cable. We heard different stories about it, and it started out as an exercise to learn about cable to get the Whalers on it.
All right, so it's 1978.
Right.
We go back to that time. You and your pop, Bill, are thinking about this as we just talked about. How do you go from the thought process to getting this in motion for what would become ESPN?
The first step was we called all the cable operators together in Connecticut and said, we have this really great idea. We're going to put together a package that's going to include the New England Whalers and UConn basketball, and because of those long summer months, we'll fill it in with Bristol Red Sox baseball. Mm-hmm. And that meeting was one of the great marketing flops of all time. I mean, it was a disaster. Somebody in the back of the room raised their hand and said, look, if you guys are serious about this, you know, you got to look at the satellite. And they argued about what the satellite could or could not do. We had already taken a $9,000 cash advance and a credit card to start the company, so we thought we'd better check out the satellite.
Right.
We quickly learned that you could send a signal around America via satellite for less than it used to cost to send the same signal around the state of Connecticut. So we thought, wow, something is here. Mm-hmm. Spent a few months arguing about it, trying to find the right idea. There were no cable networks then. We talked about maybe we'll do ACC basketball one night and Big Ten the next night or something like that to mix it up. And on August 16th, 1978, my dad and I decided we'd take a day off. We would ignore the little pressure we had on ourselves to come up with an idea for this channel. Mm-hmm. We'd go visit my sister, who was living with her grandparents at the Jersey Shore that summer, and it was her 16th birthday. We got in the car for about 30 minutes and started yelling at each other because we were a little stressed. And in those days, I thought sons were always right in those arguments. I have a different view now.
There you go.
And somewhere along the way, I just said, I don't care what you do with it, show football all weekend, see if I care. And instead of yelling back at me as he'd done all morning, he said, that's it, not football, but sports all weekend long. So we came up with that idea. We spent a little bit of time saying, what do you do Monday through Friday? Before we hit New Jersey, it was all sports all day, every day. And 12 and a half months later, we were on the air.
An amazing story. So 79, first show, Sports Center,
right.
On the air. You pick out the metropolis of Bristol, Connecticut for the headquarters. What was it like for those watching this right now, Scott? Try to explain in the early years just how crazy it was with the lack of facilities and studios and all kinds of things in Bristol, which is a whole bit different story today.
You know, Bristol was selected because it was one of the few places early on that we knew was cleared for satellite transmission. Okay. I mean, there was a little bit of logic to it, and we were only a couple hours outside of Manhattan, so at least if you were from the New York area and you were a broadcaster, you weren't totally estranged from everything you knew, but it was pretty isolated. And the thing that I remember most about it is the building wasn't even ready opening night.
Right.
We were racing to get everything done. We couldn't quite get there. The best moment of that night was about an hour before going on the air, because my father and I just walked out of everything, walked around to the back of this empty, dirt-filled area in what's now part of the big campus. And we just shared a moment where we kind of were amazed at all that had happened in the last year, and that was a special moment. When we first went on the air, though, one of our problems was we hadn't finished the control room on time. They punched a hole into the back of our brand new wall, brought a remote truck up to do the broadcast, ran all the cables and cameras in, and of course in 1979 it was more difficult doing remote broadcast than it is today. And during the very first Sports Center, a skunk came in through that hole that we had placed in the wall. So that was our excitement on opening night.
So 1979, we fast forward to around 84, and this is when you were either bought out or sold your shares. How did it work, Scott, where you and Bill, who created what would become this monster, no longer were associated with it in those regards?
Well, it was simple. We put up $9,000 to start the company. Getty Oil put up $100 million to make it happen. They thought they should have control for some reason. Texaco bought Getty, and in the style of deals done in the 1980s, the first thing they did was spin off all the non-oil assets to help pay for the deal. Mm-hmm. And when ESPN was up for sale, as the minority shareholder, it was time for us to get out. So it was bought, and it now is a Disney property. It went through several changes from here to there.
It did, and I read the book about ESPN and the history and all that. Do you feel that you get your share of respect when it comes to what you and your dad created? Do you feel you get that?
never even think about it. It's a really proud memory. I'm happy with what we did. I think of anybody who was involved with it, I was the biggest single beneficiary, because I was 22 and 23 years old. I was walking around the executive suites of Getty Oil asking for $100 million. I learned an awful lot of things, and that's helped me throughout my career. So it's not, it's not something you even think about. When I think of ESPN, I don't think of the network that people see now. It's great. I'm a fan. I watch it.
Sure.
I remember, 6 employees on January 1st, 1979, and a skunk. And we actually had, in the very early days, Jim Rockford, the Rockford Files was a popular TV show.
Jim Garner.
That's right. And we actually printed 4 business cards for each of us, depending on what meetings we were going to. We took the idea from the Rockford Files. Those are the things I remembered. It was a really an amazing time. We were just too stupid to know it couldn't be done.
In the 5 years from 79 to 84, did you ever think at that time, and I'm still going through the baby stages, the infancy stages, did you ever think it would become the monster it is today?
That's hard to answer. We thought it would be really big. There were signs in the first week that it was bigger than anything we had imagined. We showed this game, hurling, Irish hurling.
Sure.
And not really a big sport in America today. It's played on a field about the size of Rhode Island. Every now and then somebody cheers, so you assume something good happened. And we put it on the air, and instantly we started getting phone calls. Who are the leagues? How do you follow the key players? Where do you find this? This was pre-internet, so you couldn't just Google it. But we're thinking, wow, if they're doing this for hurling, wait till we get to the good stuff.
Right.
And there were lots of signs like that early on. And within a year, it became the single biggest reason that people signed up for cable.
Absolutely. Did you have any say in the talent that was hired? The Chris Bermans of the world. We know Tom Mees, Berman, Bob Lee were the originals.
Right. I wasn't directly involved in that. What happened in the summer of '79, we hired 18 people from NBC Sports. Chet Simmons was the president of NBC Sports. Scotty Connell was the executive vice president. They came over and they became the production crew. And remarkable, it's really funny to think about it. They were one of the big 3 networks, and we took their top 18 people, and they came up to Bristol, Connecticut, and really took hold of all of that. We were involved with the hiring of Jim Simpson, who was our marquee announcer in those early days, and that was quite a discussion. And that was another hint that we were onto something big, because he was under contract to another network. It expired in mid-September. And we asked for a waiver. Could they let him go 2 weeks early so we could have him there on opening night? And we were told no. They were concerned about the growing rivalry, and they just didn't want to give us any leg up for opening night.
Well, it's obvious that you and your dad had the vision, and there were other visionaries, like these announcers who jumped on board and saw it, like these NBC behind-the-scenes directors, producers who jumped on board, and it's obviously become a huge part of a lot of people's lives who follow sports. On the flip side now, you turn around after that success and helping create ESPN. You've gone on to become a New York Times bestselling author, and of course the founder and president of Rasmussen Reports, one of the nation's premier sources for public information. How do you go from sports into this political realm? Well,
this goes back to the media upbringing, because my company today is a media company. It started because of the internet. I was doing some polling to help some people out, and the internet came along, and I began to put polling results on the internet, and all of a sudden, people were writing about it. And in 1995, I wasn't known as a pollster, but on the internet, we looked exactly the same as Gallup. And we were the first firm to actually take advantage of the internet, distribute our information directly to consumers, let them read the poll questions if they had doubts about it. And very quickly it became apparent there was something big going on here. Within a couple of years, we had 1 million page views a day coming into the website. And I look at it as a media story that started. The internet was the same for this as cable was for ESPN. ESPN was for sports junkies. What we do now, a lot of it's for political junkies. And the other key is you just pay attention to what people are listening for. Nobody cares about polls. They care about the topics that we poll about. So if somebody comes to our website today, they're not looking to find out, gee, how did you conduct this poll and what sampling methodology did you use? They want to know who's winning, Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. It's a sports
Get to
event.
the bottom of
That's
it.
That's right.
So in the mid-'90s, you come up with this, you create this. The world has really changed from the mid-'90s.
Sure has.
To where we are now, especially with this information highway and social media. So you had to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Right. Keep up, and we're still struggling with that. I mean, the polling industry is changing every day. You know, young people don't even know what a landline telephone is anymore, so we have to adapt our techniques to that. When you go beyond that and look at what's happening online, I think of things that we did just 4 or 8 years ago on the internet that were, you know, our best sellers in effect. And they don't do anything right now because everybody else is competing in a different way. In 2004, we were the only polling firm that tracked the race every single day of the presidential campaign.
Wow.
4 years later, Gallup came in and started doing it every day. And right now, I think there's about 10 or 12 national polls released every single day down the stretch of this campaign.
What do you say when you do talks? You're in Memphis to speak to a bunch of folks. I'm sure you do this all around the country. What's your main message, Scott?
Well, it depends on, you know, what the topic is, but for the most part, when I'm talking about the political world, I'm trying to convey a sense that I'll put it in sports terms. I'm a New York Giants fan.
Okay.
When the Redskins play the Cowboys, I want them both to lose. That's my worldview. And for a lot of Americans, when the Republicans play the Democrats, they want them both to lose. There is a frustration that is building. It is going to bring major change to the country in the next decade, and we're not sure how it's going to play out. We've seen this pattern in history before. Public opinion shifts, the political leadership is out of sync, and it's always a little bit of a bumpy ride into a new era. But at the end of the day, I'm very, very confident. We're going through a tough time as a nation right now, but I believe our best days are still to come.
Scott, we always end our interviews with 5 for the road. 5 quick questions. First thing that comes to mind. I think I'm going to know the first answer to my first question, but that is your favorite athlete of all time.
Gordie Howe.
It's Gordie Howe. How about your favorite professional sports franchise?
Well, that would be a tough call between the New York Yankees or the New York Giants. But
I got to ask you to pick one.
Okay, I'd go with the Giants.
Go with the New York Giants. Right? Go with the defending Super Bowl champions.
Defending Super Bowl champion. And when I watch baseball, it's always I love baseball. I love going to the ballpark, but it's a little bit of background noise at the home. When the Giants are on, it's very serious time.
I got you. Favorite musician, singer, band?
The Beatles.
I'm with you.
Got my guitar when they first came to America. So.
Although we're Jersey guys, Springsteen's got to be up there.
Springsteen,
right?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, our offices are about 3 blocks from the Stone Pony. So.
How about that?
Yeah.
Scott, how about your favorite all-time television program? You can't say SportsCenter.
Okay. Well, yeah, SportsCenter would have to be up there. Or maybe the predecessor to it, Sports Only, that we did on a local channel before that. Favorite all-time television show? Right now, I think I'd probably say Stargate 1. SG-1.
Oh, you were in the sci-fi?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe your answer will be sci-fi as well for my final question. Favorite movie of all time? Or we go with a sports movie?
Favorite movie of all time could be The Sting.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Great movie. Great
Redford
classic.
and Newman for all the youngsters out there who are watching. They don't know who we're talking about.
And this is what's terrible. You know, you go out and you tell these things. If you have an audience of people who are our age, they remember the connections.
Exactly.
When I go out and talk about some of this stuff, now the hardest thing in today's world is to talk to a young audience and say, no, really, there were only 3 channels and there was only 1 college football game on every weekend.
And they'd say, you're crazy.
That's right.
We're not getting older, we're only getting better, Scott.
I agree with that.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Every 4 years, the Summer Olympic Games come around, and every time it does, the sport of gymnastics seems to steal the show. In fact, gymnastics is one of the most viewed events of the Summer Games, both with television ratings and tickets sold at the venue. This past summer, London played host to the Games of the 30th Olympiad, and the U.S. women's gymnastics team did not disappoint. The Stars and Stripes would win the team gold and would go on to earn the nickname the Fierce Five. And Gabby Douglas would become the breakout star, taking the gold medal in the individual all-around competition. The sport of gymnastics has always been popular, but there's no doubt the latest boom can be attributed to Gabby, Jordan, Michaela, Kyla, and Allie. Recently, I spent some time at River City Gymnastics, and with the help of owner and head team coach Gus Vandervoort, I got a glimpse of some of the local rising stars in the sport.
Gus, gymnastics has always been popular, but with the women's team winning the gold medal in the Olympics, has that really spiked things?
Oh, absolutely. Our numbers have come up. We averaged about 600 last year, and we're running a little over 700 students right now, so absolutely.
4 events that comprise the all-around with gymnastics, and going on behind us right now, we're going to see a little bit of the floor exercise. Tell us what we're watching here.
You're watching a few of the competitive kids that are going to be doing warming up and doing a few the skills that they do at different levels. These are level 8, 9, and 10 competitors. They start competing in USA Gymnastics about level 4, sometimes level 3, and then progress to level 10. And then they go into the elite program and start competing, and that's what you would see on TV.
I've noticed you have little girls, and I'm sure you have the boys as well competing.
Right.
How early do they start?
We start in mom and tot classes about 14 months old, and then regular they solo without mommy or daddy about 3 years old, and go to they graduate, so about 18.
You're also very competitive. River City will compete with other schools.
Absolutely. We compete regionally and nationally. We've actually hosted state championships here several times at the Cook Convention Center. We'll be going to Chattanooga this year for state championships and hopefully hosting it again next year. But yeah, we travel all over the country and compete, and have several kids competing in college right now for us, representing River City and Memphis. So.
All right, guys, we're going to take a look at the vault now. What's the key here as we see these young ladies perform?
Vault is all about power, and so they're going to be running as fast as they can. Some of them are doing Sugihara vaults, which is a round-off entry into a flip. Some of them are going to be doing what's called a Yurchenko vault, which should be actually doing a round-off onto the springboard and doing a back handspring onto the horse, which is what this young lady just did. Her name is Randy. She's a level 9 and competing regionally for the last few years. This next young lady's a level 8, also doing a Yurchenko vault.
Wow.
Round-off entry vault, which is, as you can see, running full speed at an immovable object and then doing a round-off and flipping backwards over. It's pretty exciting. That's Pooja, also a level 9 competitor, Pooja Patel, and competes as a level 9 competitor regionally.
And of course, in competition, they come down. They're standing. They're going down for protection purposes, right?
Absolutely.
Here, safety purposes.
Yes, we are not in competition season right now, so they are training these vaults, and we're not doing competition landings. And this is how you'll see Olympians and level 10s typically train in off-season, where they're not taking hard landings and beating up their bodies. We protect their bodies in training as much as possible and only do hard landings occasionally. It's like a football player who's, you know, if they had game pads on every day,
sure,
yeah, they wouldn't make it long.
Very impressive. All right, Gus, we're looking at the beam right now. Who do we have up there?
This is Cammie B. Austin. She's a level 10. She competed at nationals last year and is still out of season and training some new skills. As you can see, she was a little bit off on that one, but a nice straddle jump. And what she fell on was a layout step out.
Do you consider this event the toughest of the 4?
They're all different, which makes gymnastics unique. Each event has its own set of risks and rewards, and so yeah, they're all tough, and they all take a tremendous amount of training.
We'll try another one here. How about the uneven bars?
These are the bars.
Young lady.
This is Lila Jo Whitfield, and she's been in the program since she's about 3 years old. Is a level 8, and doing a new routine. That was a clear hip circle. They're required to do different movements on the bars, swinging in and outside the bar, doing clear hips and giant swings, and that's just a layout flyaway. And that's the level 8 level.
No fear from that young lady or any of these young ladies. And real quick, for those who maybe know the name and it may ring a bell, and it may not be just from River City, but you were part of the gymnastics team at the University of Memphis, then Memphis State, which no longer has gymnastics team.
Absolutely. From 1979 to 1983, I competed, you know, pretty well for those years, and graduated 83, started River City Gymnastics and started coaching 1987. Here, so.
Well, thanks for letting us spend some time. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to you. All these young ladies and young men are also participating. Over 700 here with Gus and the fine folks at River City. Thank you, Gus. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanksgiving weekend is an extremely busy sports weekend. The NFL kicked off yesterday with its traditional Turkey Day games. The college schedule is packed today with rivalry games up and down the slate. And of course, a busy Saturday, which includes home games for the Tigers and the annual Egg Bowl in Oxford between the Rebels and Bulldogs. College hoops in the NBA is in full swing. The Tigers are in the Bahamas competing in the battle for Atlantis. And the Grizzlies are hosting the Showtime Lakers tonight at FedEx Forum. And of course, the Prep Football State playoffs march on. And speaking of that, Sports Files will be preempted next week so we can air the TSSAA State Championship games. We hope you'll join us for that and for when we return on December 7th. Don't forget to see any previous Sports Files shows. Simply head to our website, WKNO.org, and click on KNO Tonight. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.